So I want to welcome everyone to the main presentation of this meeting, both here on Zoom and via live stream on YouTube. This live stream is a good preview of what a vidwheel creator network Zoom meetup is like. But if you want to get the full experience, join us at our next meeting. It's on October 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be kicking off our October theme of video strategy with a presentation by creator and video coach Nina Forit. It's called 12 Strategic Questions to Ask Before You Start Your Video Marketing. And that event will be published on the vidwheel page on LinkedIn. Okay, so this month, the VCN theme is live to digital, and we're discussing how your business can gain efficiency and effectiveness by switching some live tasks to a digital format with a focus on video. In our office hours meetings this week, we talked about utilizing video and introduction video to kind of replace the elevator pitch. And it's a video that's always working. So kind of the elevator pitch that never stops, introducing you to other people. And we got into the importance of building out an FAQ library as well, which can be used to answer common questions, save time, and build your expert status. Tonight, we're talking about online courses. These can be a great way to package your expertise and generate leads, produce income, and also build your expert status without adding to your daily workload. So who better to talk us through online video course creation than online video course creator and consultant, Kat Sorbello, who is joining us from, she's the farthest flung of the meeting members here tonight from Santiago, Chile. So Kat, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to this group. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The floor is yours.
Thank you for that introduction. And I wanted to share my screen with you today. Now, I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint slides, but what I'm about to describe to you, we need words to help us move through it more than just my voice. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, which is this one, and then I will present. Hope everyone can see that well.
Yep.
Okay, so I wanted to just provide you a little bit more of an introduction about who I am. So I'm the founder of the Stella Way, and my mission is to democratize education. What does that mean? It means that I want every single person in the world to be able to have the opportunity to access the same education, no matter their circumstances. And I'm on that mission with many other educators. And to achieve that mission, I teach experts how to share their knowledge in impactful ways. So I help experts be able to create online courses. And I teach and both design outcome-based learning experiences, which is what we will focus on today. I do all of this with my 13 plus years of experience in learning and development, both in colleges, in institutions, and in organizations. So today, we're going to discuss two main points. There's so much that we can talk about in regards to how to plan your online video course. I'm just going to keep it to two. The first one is curriculum designing, which basically means how do you plan? What goes into your course plan? And then we will look at storyboard creation, which means how do we start to prepare to record our videos? How do we plan our specific videos? So let's first have a look at curriculum design. Now, this is where we start to build our journey for our students. So I'm sure you have heard of the A to B journey, right? You're taking clients or students from where they are now to where they want to be. And by doing a curriculum design, we are focusing on how we get them to achieve that result, how we build a particular journey for them. And we also focus on what problems we will help them solve. And we do this by making sure we're focusing on an outcome that they will achieve. So in our curriculum, we focus on an action-based and an outcome-based activity. So the biggest thing that we're going to look at today is asking ourselves, what will my students learn from this video? What will they have the ability to do? We'll have a look into that a little bit later. The curriculum that you will build is like a roadmap for your video content. So it tells you exactly what content you're going to be creating at exactly what time. And that roadmap is like a map. It's like a guideline to say, this is the order of your videos that is going to help your students be able to achieve the particular outcome. So what should we include in the curriculum? The curriculum should only have three things: a goal, learning outcomes, and competencies. So we'll look into these a little bit further, but a goal is your overall goal. So that is, what is the B point? What is the point that someone's trying to achieve? What is the problem that someone is trying to solve? And learning outcomes are 3 to 5 steps that you start to create the journey for your students to get them from A to B. What are those milestones in that learning journey? What are the main, or I guess the mini goals, the learning outcomes that someone's going to achieve in that journey? And then finally, we break down each of those outcomes into competencies, which is the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities that someone will learn in order to achieve the outcomes. So we're going to break that down and have a look at an examples of each of them shortly to give you a little bit more of an understanding into how you write each of these. What is really, really important is that your goal is really specific. And it's important that your goal is really specific because of this reason. Your goal is then broken down into your learning outcomes. Your learning outcomes is then broken down into your competencies. So without a specific goal, you then risk having really broad outcomes. With really broad outcomes, you risk having really broad competencies. And what this results in is a course that is just a brain dump of your knowledge. A course that has all these choppy videos that has no real direction to it. It's like you're building a course that kind of goes here and there and back and forth and going all over the place. And what that creates is a really confusing learning journey for your students. A confusing learning journey for your students where they don't really understand why they're going through this journey. It can decrease motivation. It can decrease completion rates. It can decrease engagement. It can decrease your referrals, and all of the knock-ons of that for your business are detrimental. So it's really important that you have this goal really, really specific. Otherwise, everything else that flows after that can be at risk. So before we move on to examples of goals, I don't want to overwhelm you at all with curriculum design. Curriculum design is just a way for us to be very clear on what our plan is, right? It's just a way for us to go, okay, first this is the goal, let's break it down further, let's break it down further. So we're kind of creating this triangle. What's our top goal? And then let's break that down so we can create a roadmap of how we're going to lead our students to achieve the overall goal. So it's not scary at all. It just takes practice as long as you flow through what we're about to go through. So let's have a look at some example goals. And what I want to do first is show you some poor goals. So some goals that are not written effectively. So social media strategies. This is a poor course goal. Graphic design 101. Videos for your business. I look at these goals and I have no idea what I would learn. I have no idea what I would achieve. I have no idea how they would benefit my business or my personal life. So now we're going to convert them to good goals or better goals. So learn social media techniques to start earning money online. Create visual content using graphic design principles in your videos. So see how we've moved graphic design 101 to create visual content using graphic design principles in your video. And videos for your business then moves to use videos in your marketing content to attract more clients. So what's the difference between those two? Now, I'm sure that you can clearly see those differences, and I want to open up the floor. Can anyone tell me what are the main differences? There's two main things that I changed there. If anyone feels free to unmute themselves.
Yep, you're being specific, and you are telling the potential student what the results will be.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you very much, Russ. So if we look at the two things that I did was I was action-based. I turned it into an outcome that someone was going to achieve by simply adding a verb to the beginning of it. It all of a sudden becomes action-based. And I also said, why? Why will a student learn this outcome, or why would they want to? And that's really bringing in the wants and the desires of your students. What do they want to achieve? So I can pretty much guarantee that a student, well, not guarantee, but let's just say a student will want to get more clients, more than just starting to do video out of nowhere, right? So when we're tapping into their why, their want, then that can help us later on with our marketing, our launching of our course. And it also helps us to really focus on our students, really focus on them, and make sure we're creating a learning journey and a learning experience for them. So if we go back to our examples, we can then see that this is what changed. Each of them now begins with a verb in its, I'm not a very good English teacher, but I think it's called the present simple tense, where we're not adding something such as learning. We're not adding something such as creating. We're not adding that ing to the end. Learn, create, use. There are three different verbs. So here's a tip for you. If you think, oh, I need to add a verb to the beginning and I need to say why, and Kat told me to do this, and it's just so overwhelming, all you simply need to do is ask yourself this. My clients will have the ability to, and there's no way that you can continue that sentence without a verb. So if we head back, I'm just going to try to go back. There we go. If we go back to this example, and if I was to say my client will have the ability to graphic design 101, it doesn't make sense.
Sorry, I'll turn this off. I didn't know.
So this is an example of how we can test if we've got a good goal. So then we can say my clients will have the ability to create visual content. My clients will have the ability to learn 10 social media techniques. My clients will have the ability to use. And so that's just a little tip to make sure that you have a good goal. My clients will have the ability to. And we do this. We make sure that we use that tip for all of our examples. For all of our goals, learning outcomes, and competencies. So I want to provide you another example now. And I want to look at this example of how do we take a course goal, then break it down into learning outcomes, and then break that down into competencies. So then really, you can see it's not that overwhelming. It just, by taking our time here, we then make the rest of the process easier. So here's an example goal. Implement Airtable base for video content to publish videos on schedule. Just a goal. And then I've broken this down into 3 learning outcomes. I always recommend 3 to 5 learning outcomes. Anything more, then you're at a point that you can overwhelm your students and really create a confusing journey for them. So outcome 1, understand the difference between Airtable database and Google Sheets. Learning outcome 2, add columns related to video creation. And learning outcome 3 is create a calendar view, etc., etc. So each one of these is starting with that verb. Each one of these I can say, my clients will, or my students will have the ability to understand. My students will have the ability to add. My students will have the ability to create. So everything is outcome based. Now we're going to look at learning outcome 3. The reason why I want to look at learning outcome 3 is because it's using this create verb. And when we're using a create verb, it's one of our highest verbs to use. If we look at them in tiers, if we look at them in our competencies, we have a knowledge, a skill, and an ability. And knowledge is to start to have an understanding of a concept. And that's it. Just understand something. So today, you're going to have a lot of knowledge to understand the concepts of course planning. And then the next step is skills. And that's when you're starting to apply things. That's when you're starting to practice things, when you're following steps, when you're following demonstrations, but you're just being like a parrot. You're just doing and doing and doing, following what the teacher's saying, following what the instructions are saying. And then the ability is when you're turning that knowledge and these skills into your own abilities so that you can start to create things in your own business. So the reason why I want to go into the competencies is so that you can see in this next example how I break down this learning outcome, which we just looked at, into the 3 different levels of competencies. You do not need to have all 3. I just want to show you this example. So I just want to reel back a bit. This one here, learning outcome 1, is only knowledge. So the competencies that would flow that are only competencies falling under knowledge because there's no skills, there's no abilities. So you do not need all 3. So let's break down this learning outcome. A knowledge is to recognize best filters to use. A skill is to connect calendars, physically connect 2 calendars together. And the ability is to start to modify the calendars so that they are functional within your business. So when you start to think about your course, start to think about what is that overall goal, and then how can you break it down to 3 to 5 outcomes, and then how can you break that down into competencies. And each time, at each level, we're going to use that tip by asking ourselves, what will my client or what will my student have the ability to do at the goal, at the learning outcomes, and at the competencies level? And making sure that you are very, very clear, because if this is not clear, then everything that flows after it will be unclear. And that can create a very, very confusing learning journey, especially because at this point here, when you have your competencies, this is what you start to design your videos to, right? You don't go in and start to design your videos based on your goal. You start to design videos against your competencies. And before we move on, before we are ready to go on to recording our videos, this is when we start to do our storyboarding. But before we move on to that, I just want to open up the floor again and ask if there are any questions.
If anybody has questions, you could just pipe up. Anybody got anything? Oh, Garen's got one.
No, I don't. I was just going to say, look a little bit. Did you guys hear that?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Neil, you said hyper up, so I thought that's what you meant.
That's good. That's good. Nice. Excellent.
Perfect. Okay, so let's then move on to storyboarding. Thanks for the hype up. Has anyone heard of the word storyboarding before? I'm just wondering if anyone's heard the term before. I'm seeing some nods. Who would like to share their definition of storyboarding? Everyone's nodding. Most people are nodding. Okay. Cool. So a storyboard is not scary at all, right? It's very, very simple. John has his hands up. I don't know if he has a question or if he's just saying that he's heard of storyboarding. John. Oh, he's gone.
Yeah, I was just saying I've heard the term. Sorry,
Okay.
Kat. I'm so enjoying
No,
this stuff.
that's okay. No, that's okay. I just didn't want to continue if you had a question. Okay, so we're going to have a look at some storyboards and some examples. Before we do that, I just want to quickly go over what a storyboard is. So I'll just show you all of these so I can just talk about them together. Basically, it's a way for you to see what will your video look like at the end result. What's the logical sequence that you have in that video so that you can share your information in a logical way? And most importantly, what visual and audio information or instruction will your students see? And we make sure that with this, we're linking our storyboard, we're linking all of this information back to our competencies. So we're saying, does this video actually help people to achieve these competencies, which will in turn help them to achieve the outcomes and then the overall goal? So this is where we're starting to compare it to the competencies, which is why it's important that we're so specific when we're doing this breakdown. So why should you even bother doing a storyboard? Again, I'll just show you all of these to talk about them. Basically, a storyboard will help you to make sure you identify if there are any gaps within your content so that you are putting them in the right order, not missing any information. So you don't run the risk of doing a video where you're talking 100 miles an hour, you're giving pieces of information, then coming back and then giving something else and then going over here and then coming back and just giving so much information at once that doesn't really make sense. And what that would result in is a cognitive overload. And a cognitive overload is when you've surpassed someone's cognitive abilities and they're going to walk away of your session not learning anything. That's the cognitive overload. So we want to stop that. By storyboarding, we can control what information we're going to be giving at what time, and most importantly, we can align it all back to our goals, our outcomes, and our competencies. So a storyboarding has 5 elements. Again, I'm just going to pop these down. Their 5 elements are, do they match against the outcome? Is there a sequence of how things will be appear? What multimedia would be used? So what will people be seeing? What content will there be? So this content is, again, what people might see, or most importantly, what they'll hear. And then interactivities. So what questions are you asking? How does someone need to interact with your video? What do they need to do? And it's important to list these all out. And finally, before I show you some examples, I just wanted to say that storyboarding does not have to be scary. You can use Google Documents or Microsoft Word, Google Docs and Microsoft Word. You can even use PowerPoint or Google Slides. So for example, for this session, I could go in and start to create my Google Slides and start to type in the notes about what I want to say. And that could be my first version of my storyboard. So John, for your course, for example, your first version of your storyboard could be in PowerPoint, or it can be in Google Slides, where you start to create what that journey looks like in just one video. And you can move things around. I like Google Slides because you can easily move them around. You can write notes in.
I've heard good things about Google Slides. Sorry to interrupt, but that's what I was actually thinking. That's awesome to have that validated.
This is what I'm using Google Slides right now. I use Google Slides to create scenario-based learning activities, which are like they're activities that someone moves through, but they're branched activities. So they have to make decisions, and each decision has a consequence that is an opportunity to learn something. And I use Google Slides for that. Just by using the slides has links, and I use buttons. I'm not going to get into that. I'm quite excited about how useful Google Slides are. But I'm happy to talk about that, or even show you. I can send you the lesson so you can see the benefits of Google Slides. Okay, so other types of storyboard tools you can use is Canva, where you can use that for graphic design purposes, well, to design your images, not graphic design. But also you can start to do storyboard on there using their presentation slides. There's also many other apps that you can use, many authoring tools for e-learning that also have storyboards involved. One of them is called Storyboard That, and that's really useful when you are designing animated videos to just kind of get all your characters in place and what people are going to be seeing. For a live session, I wouldn't go into Storyboard That. I would just use Google Slides, or my favorite tool, pen and paper. I love to use pen and paper when I'm styling out my storyboards, and I love to use sticky notes when I'm styling my course. So when I actually start to brainstorm my goals, my learning outcomes, I don't go into my computer straight away. I scribble on pen and paper. I brainstorm and I throw everything out. Then I start to go on sticky notes and I start to put everything into order. And when I have everything in order, I can then move the sticky notes around to then make sure that I'm creating this nice flow. And then I might find some gaps. So I use many different tools. For this session, I want to show you an example. For this session, I did do a storyboard. I'm just going to stop my screen for a second, and hopefully you can all see me well. This is my storyboard for today's session. This is my scribble that I like to do. Right, I'm going to show it up on the screen. I'm going to show it up on the screen so you can see it a little bit clearer, but I wanted to point out that I just use my colors. I am a very color orientated person, and each of the colors mean something to me. So let me actually show you this. I'm just going to play this again. And this is the photo of my storyboard. So I hope you can all see that better. I just wanted to show you that it's actually something that I use. It's not something that I took 5 weeks ago and I use it every day. It's something that I've created for this session, and it's in front of me here to help me. But what we have here is the goal of this session: 2 outcomes, 3 competencies per outcome. And both of my outcomes are in understanding. Each one of my competencies fall underneath the knowledge based, right? So we're not doing skills, we're not doing abilities, we're just starting off with our knowledge. And these are all of my slides, right? They go back and forth, they go all over. So I have the elements of a storyboard. I have my outcomes, I have my sequences, right? We might go back and forth. I then have my multimedia. Each of these pink ones are my slides, right? Some of them are weirdly shaped, but they're still my slides, and I keep to that color so I know what my slides are. The green is talking about things that I cannot forget to say, right? So this is just important things that I do not want to forget saying. And the blue are the interactions. So if you remember, after the tip, I asked you if you had any questions. Before storyboarding, I asked you if you knew storyboarding. So this is really important because I don't want to get to the end of the session and think, oh, I really should have asked if anyone knew storyboarding, or why didn't I do it in this order? Why did I talk about storyboarding before competencies? Because now it doesn't make sense, right? And you can see my arrows, and I'm like, oh, let's go back over here. Let's move over here. And I actually did a 3, 4, 5 and moved back over because I wanted to show you these highlighted verbs, which I designed this before I went into Google Slides. So this is something that I created for this 30-minute session. The final thing that I wanted to show you is another example, which is a Google Doc storyboard that I did for a pre-recorded video. Pre-recorded videos obviously don't have the opportunity when I can ask you if you have questions, so I have different types of interactions. Here is the same. I have my outcomes and my objectives at the top. I like to ask myself questions such as, how can I help people achieve these objectives? What does the student need to practice to achieve these objectives? So that when I come down here, I have my storyboard. Now, this is a real storyboard that I used for a video on YouTube when I was talking about how to set up, plan, record, and edit your videos for your courses. And I physically logged in. It was a Facebook Live that I then put on YouTube afterwards. And I physically started on my phone, and then I showed people how to unpack. And I had to say when I was going to switch to my webcam, when I was going to only have my face and not sharing my screen, when I wanted to show a particular example of a particular slide that I was using, things I didn't want to forget to say, and interactions such as asking questions, asking them to write in comments, such as saying how they can download this example storyboard, for example. So when we come to planning our online video lessons, there are 2 main things. And they are: create a video course plan, that's our curriculum, and plan the flow of your videos, and that's our storyboard. So I hope in this session, we started with growing curriculum and storyboarding, and we started with so much information, but I hope that by the end of it, that you weren't as overwhelmed as you were at the beginning. And I wanted to end with these really basic examples of curriculum and storyboarding, so that it's not so overwhelming, that you don't have to sit there and write a year-long curriculum that is in universities. Rather, a curriculum has 3 aspects to it, where you are creating a video course plan, and then you plan the flow of your videos by using a storyboard. So that is all from me today, but I would love to hear if you have any questions for me. Yes.
Excellent.
Eric.
Eric.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, like, I really like infographics, so I created one for the course that I'm building.
Mhm.
And when I look at it, though, I'm like, that is a ton of information on this infographic. But then I started looking at it, I'm like, I think each one of these is a video in and of itself. Like, I like that. Like, I always levitate towards or gravitate towards like infographics and things like that, anything visual. But I don't know. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of the application off the top of my head. Visio, or I can't remember the top of my head. There is an application that you can use that it's a video, and then over the top of you, you have like a PowerPoint slide that's transparent. So it's only the image, and you can have an interactive image. So you click on an image and then it zooms in, but as it zooms in, it zooms into the level 2. So it's like having an infographic with level
Prezi.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Prezi, what was it, Neil?
Yep.
Yeah.
Prezi.
I've seen those a couple of times. I'm like, wow, that's pretty pretty impressive.
Yeah. So sorry, Sean.
So what was that? Prezi?
Prezi, yeah.
Prezi. So that's really useful to show an infographic that is really overwhelming, so that you have it in stages. So you can look at the top layer, and then as you click a button, bring it down to the next. So you can start to explain it, and then provide people with the infographic afterwards. So it's like bit by bit, you're explaining everything, and then you give them the infographic. And then all of a sudden you've changed from, wow, this is an overwhelming infographic, I'm not going to learn anything, to breaking it down easier, so that when they take it away, they understand it. You're welcome, Garen.
Excellent.
What obviously you've probably worked with a lot of different platforms. I was thinking about using Thinkific, but Thinkific, Teachable, I mean, go down the list, there's 20, 30 others. Which one do you typically like the best?
I use Thinkific. There's so many different ones out there, and I best say, write out your requirements, write out what you need the system to do. So for Thinkific, when I started using Thinkific, I already had businesses set, like my business set up, because I moved from consulting to then providing online courses within this particular business. So I already had my email marketing set up. I already had everything set up. So I just needed an add-on. Whereas if you're just starting out, things like Kajabi that have the whole thing available there, landing pages, email marketing, CRM, everything in one, that might be better, but it's more expensive. So my point is, I did not need to have the email marketing. I did not need to have the landing pages. I just needed an area to host a couple of courses. So I chose Thinkific for that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for me too.
Awesome.
I just pay them money. I don't actually do anything with them yet.
I
did their trial and I
got
I've actually left it on purpose, because I'm like, I want the pain of this payment each month so that I get going.
Negative incentive. Well, I'm going to go ahead and shut down our live stream and our meeting here. Kat, if you're willing to stick around for a few more questions after, we'll just get a couple closing notes and we'll shut down the live stream. So thank you to everyone who joined us via live stream. Again, don't miss our next one of these meetings. It's coming up on October 7th. Nina Forip will be presenting 12 strategic questions to ask before you start your video marketing. And with that, I will say have a good night to